Part 5. Different Dimension Red Alert World. Author, Sanqian Lang. Chapter 41. Yes, the fifth instructor also quickly responded with a military salute. After giving lectures to the two companies one after another, Captain Lingfei waved to the other soldiers on the training ground. The game is over, let's disperse. Then, Xiaotian, call a few mobilization soldiers to dismantle the ring. If you don't play, it will be in the way. Yes, Deputy Tianyu responded and immediately started operating. The other officers and soldiers also dispersed one after another. The first company and the fifth company stared at each other for a while, and finally left. A confrontation that affected the entire barracks finally came to an end with the victory of the fifth company. The third round of competition lasted nearly a whole morning. After disbanding, the fifth company did not go back to training. Instead, Wang Ling led dozens of injured soldiers to the treatment room. Although these people did not lose their arms or legs, the subsequent competition was too fierce. They all failed to varying degrees, and many of them even suffered bruises and swollen faces. It looked really lively. But when the group of them got into the treatment room, what they saw made them all dumbfounded. In the treatment room, all the soldiers from both sides who had their legs and feet broken before were also here. Some of them had been splinted and bandaged, and some were already on crutches. The two sides were sitting face to face on the hospital bed, and it was quite a scene. Enemies were extremely jealous when they met, glaring at each other, and sparks of electricity seemed to burst out, making the atmosphere very tense. Some people are still in the process of bone setting, and some muffled sounds can be heard in the distance. The arrival of Wang Ling and other large troops directly disrupted the atmosphere here. Many of the bandaged soldiers of the fifth company stood up and encouraged, "You guys arrived just in time." Just now, these bandaged soldiers from the first company people are still shouting, come on, then break their other leg. They are still not honest. Keep fighting to see who is more seriously injured. Only a dozen people from the first company were sent directly to the treatment room. They were already at an absolute disadvantage in terms of numbers. Now reinforcements came, including Wang Ling, a pervert. After hearing their words, these 10 people, his expression changed immediately. But before Wang Ling and the others could answer, the military doctor was not happy. A fat doctor wearing a mask came over cursing, keep beating. I'm going against you. This is the treatment room, not you. This is the place to fight. If you want to fight, get out and fight, don't make my place dirty. A doctor actually scolded a patient in this tone. It was obvious that he was annoyed. However, no one at the scene dared to say anything. Although this man was just a military doctor, his military rank had already reached the level of sergeant, which was higher than Adjutant Tianyu. No one at the scene could afford to offend him. After being scolded by him, the people in the fifth company became a little disgraced on the spot. The posture they had just put on immediately fell down, which made the dozen or so people in the first company look on. In the end, Wang Ling came to the rescue. Fight, the game is over, any grudges should be put behind us. When we get to the battlefield, we are all comrades in arms. Wang Ling had already said this, and naturally the others didn't hold on to him anymore. Even those in the first company didn't provoke him anymore. The fat doctor looked at Wang Ling and asked, "Is it No 101? Ang, it's me. Let's go, I'll treat you." The fat doctor turned around and left a message. This was to open a back door for Wang Ling alone and avoid queuing. The fight between the two companies had already spread throughout the barracks. Of course, the fat doctor also knew something about it. He had also seen some of Wang Ling's outburst today from a distance. In the final analysis, Wang Ling's injuries were not too serious. They were just a result of being punched too many times by No. 099 of the first company, which resulted in some purple and swollen injuries and a small amount of damage. What was more, it was physical exertion that left Wang Ling. They are all a little weak now. These injuries are relatively easy to treat. The fat doctor applied some medicine, put on some gauze, and simply treated them. Wang Ling didn't wait for anyone else. He said hello and left the treatment room. Coincidentally, when he left, it happened that No. 099 of the first company also came to the door of the treatment room with dozens of wounded people. But what was unexpected was that the two sides just met each other and said nothing, as if they didn't know each other at all, and passed by each other. After passing the first company, Wang Ling stopped and looked back at them. Although he didn't say anything, Wang Ling could clearly feel the frustration in No. 099's heart from the previous contact. However, this had nothing to do with him anymore. Wang Ling shrugged his shoulders and went back to the tent. After resting for a while, it was finally time for lunch. After 3 consecutive conflicts, they finally defeated the first company, which made the fifth company extremely excited. At noon today, they were still celebrating in the cafeteria. The table was filled with various delicacies and bottles of vodka. As the greatest contributor to the fifth company, Wang Ling was naturally unable to avoid the fate of being drunk. Although there were a lot of bandages on his face and it was not suitable for him to drink alcohol, this group of hard-blooded soldiers did not care about this. Even those wearing bandages and walking on crutches rushed to drink, and the result was joyful. Not long after the celebration started, Wang Ling was already completely drunk. The instructor had no choice but to send 2 people to send him back to the camp, while the celebrations of the others continued. Whether in reality or in the game world, this was the first time Wang Ling got drunk. Last time, he was just drunk. Fortunately, Wang Ling's drinking capacity was not great, but his wine quality was pretty good. He didn't embarrass his 2 comrades and lay down on the bed and fell asleep. Wang Ling usually slept peacefully, but now he was snoring so loudly that it seemed that the bed alone was not enough for him to get out of alone. Although the fifth company won the victory, the training this afternoon still had to continue. However, Wang Ling and the soldiers who were on crutches were temporarily put on leave. While the others were training, they were still resting in the camp. Wang Ling was sleeping soundly all the time because he was drunk. When he woke up, it was already dinner time in the barracks. Wang Ling opened his eyes drowsily and shook his sore head. He looked privately and saw that dozens of comrades who had eaten were already lying in the tent. What surprised Wang Ling the most was that Sergeant Tianyu was also here. He was still chatting with other soldiers, but after seeing Wang Ling wake up, he came over with a smile. "Number 101, you woke up, how is your physical condition?" Wang Ling quickly stood up and gave a military salute, felt his physical condition, and then replied, "Sir, I have not fully recovered, but it is not a problem to fight with ordinary people." Before, he had to rest for a week in the real world to recover, but after strengthening his body, his recovery ability is much stronger than before. Tianyu Zongzi smiled and nodded. "Okay, number 101, Captain Ling Fei wants to meet you, so come with me." Different Dimension Red Alert World. Author, Sanqian Lang. Chapter 42. Captain Ling Fei. Wang Ling was a little confused for a moment. Why did Captain Ling Fei want to see him? Sergeant Tianyu pretended to be dissatisfied. "What, you're still not happy?" "No, sir, I'll go right away," Wang Ling replied quickly. Even if he didn't like it, he didn't dare to say it. Sergeant Tianyu was finally satisfied. He hooked his hand and left the camp. Wang Ling hurriedly followed. They left, but the soldiers of the fifth company in the camp were a little upset. Hey, did I hear you right? Captain Ling Fei wants to meet No. 101. That's right, that's what I heard too. But why do you want to see him? Needless to say, No. 101's explosive performance must have impressed Captain Ling Fei and made him want to stay by his side. My darling, stay with the captain. Isn't this the rhythm of direct promotion? No. But don't envy others, number 101 did it with his own fists. Who is envious? I am just happy for him. From now on, we will have to rely on number 101 for promotion. Wang Ling was unaware of the discussion of these comrades. Now he followed Sergeant Tianyu to a diamond-shaped building. This is where Captain Ling Fei usually works and rests. Just as Wang Ling was looking at the building, Sergeant Tianyu knocked on the door in a polite manner. Sir, number 101 of the 5th Company is here. Let him in. Captain Ling Fei's voice immediately came from inside. Wang Ling was a little scared of his instructor, let alone the person in charge of the entire barracks. He didn't dare to neglect him at all, so he hurried in, and when he saw Captain Ling Fei, he gave a military salute. Sir, are you looking for me? Captain Ling Fei was still looking at a piece of paper. When he heard Wang Ling's voice, he put it down and said with a smile, don't ignore me. I'll call you directly to show my closeness. You're welcome, just sit down wherever you want. What he said made Wang Ling a little dumbfounded. How could this dignified captain be so close to the people? Seeing Wang Ling being stupid, Captain Ling Fei laughed dumbly, and did not force him to do anything. He just asked, number 101, I just saw your information. Your real name is Wang Ling, right? Yes, sir. I'm very curious. When you first joined the barracks, you couldn't even run long distances and had the worst reputation in the army. But then why did you suddenly become so strong? Captain Ling Fei asked again. However, Wang Ling found it difficult to answer this question. How could the captain believe that he had been injected with a strengthening agent? And if you believe it, it will be even more troublesome. Wang Ling redeemed this with points. If Captain Ling Fei also wanted it, would he have to spend 100 points? During the war, if he still wanted to mass produce, where would Wang Ling go to steal points? However, fortunately, Captain Ling Fei did not embarrass him and said with a smile, okay, I'm just asking. Don't be so nervous. Everyone has secrets. I won't embarrass you if you don't want to tell them. Huh, Wang Ling breathed a sigh of relief. Immediately afterwards, Captain Ling Fei took out something from the drawer, and then asked Wang Ling, you don't have a military rank yet, right? Sir, not yet, Wang Ling answered truthfully. Captain Ling Fei didn't rush to ask any more questions. Instead, he stood up and personally put something on Wang Ling's shoulders. While he was returning, Wang Ling turned his head and took a look, but was shocked. Captain Ling Fei had just personally given him the rank of private. There is a rule in their barracks. After recruits join the army, they need to train for several months before they can get a military rank. And they are just privates at the beginning. Now in the entire 5th Company, only the instructors have the rank of corporal. Others have the rank of corporal. Not even a private. But here, Wang Ling stepped over the rank of private and became a superior soldier directly, and even had a captain put it on himself. Wouldn't this surprise him? Sir, this. You can just put it on where it should be later. You don't need me to help you with this kind of work, right? Captain Ling Fei replied with a smile. Wang Ling pursed his lips. Sir, I understand, but this military rank. What, senior soldier, are you disgusted? Captain Ling Fei made a joke, and then said, killing 16 soldiers, and defeating 99 people in the 1st Company by oneself, this achievement, originally I want to give you the rank of corporal, but considering that your qualifications are far from enough, I will stay in the upper class first and slowly hone your skills for a while. Yes, sir, Wang Ling finally slowly accepted the military rank. He couldn't help but glance at it twice, and then asked, Sir, are you here just because of the military rank? When talking about this matter, Captain Ling Fei fell silent, leaving Wang Ling at a loss as to how to continue asking. After a while, Captain Ling Fei said, "No, the military rank is just a matter of convenience. I came here to tell you that you have passed the training in the barracks in advance and are exempted from the final test. You can join the battlefield in advance." Join the battlefield in advance. When Wang Ling heard this, he felt a little stupid. Captain Ling Fei nodded and said, "That's right. With your current military quality, there is no point in continuing to train. The battlefield is where you make your achievements." Wang Ling didn't know how to answer for a while. It is true that he had looked forward to the upcoming battlefield before. In the eyes of others, it was a place where life and death were decided, but for Wang Ling, it was a place where he could earn points. However, Wang Ling was also a little confused when he suddenly received the news that he would join the battlefield in advance. Captain Ling Fei was not surprised by Wang Ling's current state. "I know this is a bit abrupt, so I will give you a week to prepare, and say goodbye to your comrades. In addition, I can give you a message alone. If you write a letter of recommendation, you can be a squad leader on the battlefield, and your survival rate will be even higher. Heroes emerge from troubled times, and I believe in my vision. Your future will not be worse than mine. Come on, Wang Ling." "Understood, sir." Wang Ling smiled bitterly. What right did he have to refuse? After notifying him of this incident, Captain Ling Fei finally had nothing else to do. Wang Ling then said goodbye to the captain and left alone. At this time, Sergeant Tian Yu, who had been listening outside, also walked in and asked, "Sir, is this matter a little too hasty? After all, the time for number 101 to join the army was too short." When he just left, he seemed to be a little moody. "Lo." Captain Ling Fei stood up, stood by the window, took a look, and said with his back to his back, "It's normal. Before anyone joins the battlefield, he will be confused and scared for a while. No matter how long he trains, he will still be confused. It will be like this. However, the battlefield is always a battlefield, and there is no way to hide from it. Who told this to be a period of hegemony between the coalition forces and the allied forces? I'm tired. Old books advertise new books and won't allow them to be published. The entire first book was blocked, and several chapters of the last book were blocked. I checked it out today and found that the last book couldn't be opened on the website either. When will the turbulent internet literary world return to normal? You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Different Dimension Red Alert World. Author, Sanqian Lang. Chapter 43. Of course, Wang Ling didn't know anything about the conversation between Captain Ling Fei and Deputy Tian Yu. Just as Deputy Tian Yu said, Wang Ling was indeed in a low mood on the way back to the camp. Logically speaking, he should be happy that he was about to enter a place where he could easily improve his points. However, Wang Ling's mind was very confused. He seemed to be reluctant to let go of everything here and those group of comrades, and he had mixed feelings in his heart. Thinking about this, Wang Ling returned to the camp without knowing it. When he opened the canvas of the camp tent and subconsciously wanted to get in, he was shocked by the scene in front of him. Everyone from the 5th Company, including the instructor, was actually here. It's dinner time now. Usually only a few of this group of people will go back to the camp to rest after eating, and most of them will hang out outside, waiting for the night training to begin. But today, what this group of people did was really abnormal. In fact, what Wang Ling didn't know was that after he was called away by Adjutant Tian Yu, the news quickly spread throughout the 5th Company. Even the instructors heard about it, so this group of people had a tacit understanding here. Waiting for Wang Ling's return. After all, this is a big deal for them. Seeing Wang Ling's return, the comrades closest to him immediately became excited. However, before they could stand up and ask Wang Ling, they suddenly noticed the metal logo on Wang Ling's shoulder and immediately exclaimed, "My dear, First-class soldier. You're really a first-class soldier. Okay, 101, how long have you been in the army and how long have you been training? You've just jumped over the rank of private and become a first-class soldier. Let me see, let me see. It's true. What a good guy, I was chosen by the captain, and he was promoted quickly. Tell me, 101, what good errand has Captain Lingfei arranged for you? Yes, let's talk about it. Don't forget your brothers if you are awesome in the future. The shouts of these people immediately heated up the whole camp, and almost all the comrades rushed forward to observe Wang Ling's Medal of Superior Soldier. Seeing the activity and enthusiasm of these comrades, Wang Ling couldn't help but giggle a few times. However, when faced with their questions, Wang Ling's expression froze and he was unable to speak. What's wrong, 101? What are you hiding from us? Is it because the job is too good and you're afraid of hitting us? Ha ha ha, don't worry, we are thick-skinned and are not afraid of blows, so just say it. This group of comrades in arms looked at it clearly, and what Wang Ling said was even more difficult to explain. In the end, the instructor began to speculate, Captain Lingfei came to you. In addition to conferring a military rank, he should also have issued a battlefield recruitment order to you. I want you to join the battlefield in advance, right? These words caused an uproar in the entire camp. Wang Ling looked at the instructor, nodded with a wry smile and said, that's right. After a week, when you're ready, we'll go straight to the battlefield. What? How long have you been training before you go to the battlefield? After receiving Wang Ling's confirmation, this group of comrades became even more uneasy. Every word you said to me made the whole camp lively. It was the instructor who was the calmest. Let me just say, it may not be a good thing. If this were a peaceful era, maybe you would still be left by Captain Lingfei's side, but now is the period of war for hegemony. There are never enough manpower, your performance in the barracks is valued, and most likely, you will be sent to the battlefield in advance for training. In the camp, everyone fell into silence after hearing the instructor's words, and the atmosphere was very depressing. After a long time, number 102 said, can't we go later? Once we enter the battlefield, life and death are uncertain. Will we still be able to see you after we enter the battlefield? Yeah, 101, beg Captain Lingfei for mercy and go later. Others finally found a breakthrough, and it seemed they didn't want Wang Ling to leave prematurely. But Wang Ling laughed dumbly, patted number 102 on the shoulder, looked at the instructor and other comrades, and couldn't help but feel a warm current in his heart. Brothers, don't worry, I'm not that stupid. 16 unknown. The troops suddenly invaded, but in the end, I was tricked to death. With my strength, I will definitely make achievements on the battlefield. When the time comes, you will join the battlefield, and you will have a backer, right? His words were quite optimistic, and others were unknowingly infected by him, and gradually became more open-minded. At this time, the instructor said, okay, since you can't resist, just do your best. Maybe, when I lead these new recruits into the battlefield, you will still be my commander. Instructor, are you kidding? You will always be my instructor. Wang Ling smiled and scratched his head. In this look, how could he still be as fierce as he was in the ring competition? At this point, the topic was finally stopped. Although he was about to join the battlefield, there was still a week's buffering period. During this period, Wang Ling would seize the time to spend time with these lovely comrades. Not long after they chatted casually, the instructor blew the assembly call in front of them. It was time for their night training again. Although they had defeated the first company, it was all thanks to Wang Ling. In fact, this group competition also allowed them to clearly see the gap between them and the first company, and they could not relax at all. However, When they entered the training ground as usual, they saw that the first company was already running here collectively. It wasn't just their company that was tightening their bowstrings, the first company was under even greater pressure. In addition to today's defeat to the fifth company, the battlefield they will face in the near future will be even more stressful, and there will be no time to spare. In addition to running at night, they will also practice shooting tonight, and the workload is even higher than that of the fifth company. However, the 5th Regiment did not confront them anymore, and just practiced military marching boxing in a regular manner. While they were practicing, soldiers from several other companies also arrived here one after another to accompany them in the practice. The 5th Company's habit of practicing at night had long been spread throughout the barracks. After seeing today's game, they also can't calm down anymore. The originally empty training ground became extremely lively tonight. After more than 2 hours of continuous practice, the 5th Company finally disbanded. After everyone washed up, they hurriedly lay down on their own beds. However, they did not go to sleep immediately. Instead, they chatted together and continued for more than 10 minutes. There was the sound of snoring one after another. Wang Ling looked around at the situation in the camp for a week, then contacted Uncle He in his mind and returned to the transfer station of the interdimensional system. Tisk, tisk, before, one of the first company's men could beat you 3 or 4, but now you have defeated 99 of them by yourself. How does it feel? Uncle He looked satisfied at the transfer station. With a smile on his face, he was quite satisfied with Wang Ling's performance in the Red Alert world. But Wang Ling did not answer his question. Instead, he asked, Uncle He, why do I have to enter the battlefield early? Is this arranged by you? Uncle He smiled and shook his head. No, I have said before that you are the one who promotes the process of the interdimensional system. I only gave them personality and judgment in the game. I have no right to control what they can develop into. Is that so? Wang Ling couldn't blame Uncle He anymore. He was just about to return to the real world, but suddenly remembered something, and asked with a smirk on his face, by the way, Uncle He, I remembered something. Things are coming. What's going on? Uncle He suddenly had a bad premonition. Wang Ling rubbed his hands and asked, it seems like I don't have to go to the battlefield. I can just gain points in the barracks, right? Different Dimension Red Alert World. Author, Sanqian Lang. Chapter 44. What do you mean? Uncle He's face was already a little unhappy. It was obvious that Wang Ling didn't have any good ideas here. As expected, Wang Ling said immediately, it's a virus. Those viruses before entered the Red Alert world and became the kind of black soldiers. Killing them will also give you points. Doesn't this mean that if you lack points in the future, you will get some viruses and put them into the valley, and I'll kill as many as they come, will I still be short of points? That's right, Wang Ling came up with this bad idea at the last minute. He got a taste of the benefits in the second round of testing. After all, a person's head score is 10 points, which is equivalent to the points he needs to survive for a whole day. And for Wang Ling, it is not easy to kill the virus. Isn't it still difficult to get poisoned? However, his idea was quite good, but Uncle He was a little angry. No, don't even think about it. Wang Ling finally calmed down and saw Uncle He's expression. He blinked and asked, Uncle He, why are you still angry? Can you not be angry? He said he was going to cheat in front of the teacher, and if the teacher didn't slap him, it would be an act of mercy outside the law. Uncle He snorted coldly, and then asked, you kid, who do you think let those black soldiers in? Who? It can't be you, right? Wang Ling asked. Uncle He crossed his arms, who else could it be besides me? A different dimensional system can even create a Red Alert world, so why can't it stop those viruses? Eliminating these viruses is just an idea of mine. If it weren't for watching you've wasted so many points, and I'm worried about you. Am I going to put in these viruses for you to fight? Wang Ling suddenly lost his temper. He originally thought he was lucky to catch up with those black viruses and get some points, but he didn't expect that his luck was gifted by Uncle Hay. But Uncle Hay was still staring and added, "What's more, do you think those viruses entering the red alert world are a joke? I just put in less than 20 of the simplest Trojan viruses, less than 20. You've only been fighting black soldiers for so long. How many times will you have to die when thousands of black soldiers invade? This is just the simplest Trojan horse virus. I have also learned about some computer viruses in your world. Indeed. It's very scary. If one of those viruses is put in, it can wipe out your entire military camp." Is it so scary? Wang Ling took a breath and finally realized the seriousness of the matter. Uncle Hay made a cut sound. What do you think? It is simply unrealistic to score points. Unless you go to the real battlefield and rely on your personal strength to kill the enemy, then no matter how many points you accumulate, I will not interfere. The road must be walked step by step, and your physical and mental qualities need to be further strengthened, otherwise when the time comes for the intermediate physical fitness enhancer, I'm afraid you may not be able to survive it. Wang Ling was still a little disappointed at first, but after hearing Uncle Hay's words, he suddenly noticed something. Is there any intermediate enhancement? Uncle Hay nodded. Originally I couldn't tell you in advance, but it doesn't matter now. Since there are basic enhancements, there will naturally be intermediate enhancements and advanced enhancements, but those are more painful than the basic enhancements. Do you think you can bear it now? Let's discuss this later. Anyway, I'm not even qualified to exchange at the intermediate level. Wang Ling looked away. After spreading his hands, he asked Uncle Hay to send him back to the real world. A whole day of fighting in the red alert world was only more than 2 hours in reality. When Wang Ling opened his eyes and raised his head, he saw that the 3 unreliable roommates were not asleep yet. Well, one is playing on the computer and the other 2 are playing on their mobile phones, typical night owls. Wang Ling didn't say hello. Instead, he lay down again and fell asleep by himself. However, in the world of red alert, Wang Ling slept for a whole afternoon because he was drunk. Now the sequelae came. He couldn't sleep at all for a while. He just lay in bed and tossed and turned, and his heart was a little messy. I don't know how much time passed like this. Wang Ling finally felt a little sleepy, but suddenly. Ha 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 ha. Zhang Shenke laughed wildly, as if he had encountered some great joy, which directly disrupted Wang Ling's rhythm. He reluctantly opened his eyes and found that this guy had laughed to tears. Wang Ling was not the only one who was puzzled. Dongfang Yuking stuck her head out and asked, "Shenke, are you having a seizure?" Wei Bowen also turned his head and started to make random guesses. "Have you seen any news about a coquettish young man who failed in his courtship?" Ha ha ha. Zhang Shenke was still laughing wildly. While laughing, he pointed at Wang Ling. "Look at him, ha ha ha. After sleeping, his face looks like he was beaten, ha ha ha." It turned out that this was being laughed at, and Wang Ling was stunned when he heard it. It is true that his physical recovery ability is very good now, but the injuries on his face cannot be fully recovered within a day. It is still bruised and purple, and he looks particularly lively. Originally, this matter was quite normal for Wang Ling, but Zhang Sheng didn't know about it. He thought Wang Ling was sleeping, so he actually got cramps from laughing at this matter. Dongfang Yuking glanced at Wang Ling and blinked, thoughtfully. "Oh, it turns out you really have this ability when sleeping as if your face had been beaten by someone. We wronged Zheng Long last time, you kid, you can really sleep on your own." Wei Bowen was even more confused. "Slept? I don't think so. He should have been beaten while dreaming." When he woke up, he found that there were no scars on his face, which was inconsistent with the dream, and then he was beaten by himself. Yes, he was beaten by himself. Every one of you is so convinced," Wang Ling said, dumbfounded. These losers could really say anything. Ha ha ha. Zhang Shenke was still laughing, and his smile was very unique. Wang Ling was about to fall asleep, but in the end, he was so sleepy that he simply gritted his teeth and got up to play with Wei Bowen for a while. Children's games, waiting for the group to laugh enough before going to rest. During the rest, the night passed quickly. In the early morning of the next day, Wang Ling got up out of habit, washed up and went directly to the school playground. Randomly choosing an entry point, Wang Ling began to run around the rubber track. The speed was like a race. He kept running at this speed for nearly half an hour, but suddenly his body felt like it was being ripped apart. As if he was empty, he fell to the ground as soon as his feet were unsteady, panting exaggeratedly. However, Wang Ling did not give up yet. Instead, he endured his weak body, stood up and continued running for nearly half an hour. During this period, he fell down countless times and stood up countless times until he was so tired that he could not even move. No, just give up now. Although this basic physical fitness enhancer is good, the side effects are too terrible. If you suddenly lose your physical fitness on the battlefield, isn't it just like waiting to die? Although it's just a game, Wang Ling is not willing to accept the cowardly attitude. With his weak body, he must be able to fight. Different Dimension Red Alert World. Author, Sanqian Lang. Chapter 45. Hoo. Falling down on the school playground, Wang Ling seemed to have had all his physical energy drained out. He didn't want to move anymore and could only keep breathing. Fortunately, it was early in the morning and other students were sleeping in, otherwise if others saw his current state, he would be designated to become famous in the whole school. Although his physical energy was probably exhausted, Wang Ling's recovery ability was good now. After resting like this for nearly half an hour, he finally gained some strength. He stood up shakily, walked around nearby, and then went out. I bought breakfast for several people and climbed to the 6th floor holding onto the stair handle. But when they walked into the dormitory, the three lazy guys were still sleeping soundly. It wasn't until Sun Tongtong arrived not long after that that they got up embarrassedly, and their daily life began from then on. As before, these few of them got together and had fun almost the whole time. There were occasional classes during this period, but they were just playing with their mobile phones. The day always felt like it passed very quickly. The evening was the same as before. The other three were still having fun, but Wang Ling had entered the Red Alert world again and started a new round of training. Although the training in the barracks was arduous, Wang Ling had recovered his physical strength during the day, and his strengthened body could handle these trainings easily. During the training, Wang Ling also clearly felt that the atmosphere in the team was a bit subtle, and it seemed that everyone was taking care of him. Wang Ling also knew the reason for this, but he didn't try to find out. He just pretended to be dumbfounded and planned to spend his last week in the barracks. Not only in the military camp, but also in reality, what Wang Ling is about to face is parting. After all, Zhang Shenke and Wei Bowen had jobs. After taking such a long leave, it was time to go to work. After all, Dongfang Yuking was injured, and many things in the school were inconvenient. The two of them were leaving, and he also wanted to take Sun Tongtong home to recuperate for a while. However, the night before parting, they found the familiar barbecue stall outside the school and had one last dinner together. While I was drinking beer, a few shirtless guys with tattoos came to the next table. They had unconventional hairstyles and were dyed with mixed colors. They looked like typical gangsters. These people are not only exaggerated in appearance, but also extremely chic in their actions. When they shout for wine, their voices are so loud that the whole barbecue restaurant feels like it is ringing. However, it was not strange for anyone to come to a place like this. It was not like Wang Ling and the others had never encountered similar situations, so they didn't take it seriously. They just spoke louder. After drinking a glass of beer and eating some skewers, Dongfang Yuking suddenly asked, "Yes, Wang Ling, I heard from Shenke and the others that the money you helped me pay for my hospital bill seemed to be earned from speculating in virtual currencies. Are you still speculating now?" When he was finally asked about such a sensitive issue, Wang Ling didn't want to nor dare to disclose the matter of the different dimensional system. He could only bite the bullet and tell lies. "I speculate about it occasionally, but I don't touch it often. Let me tell you, why haven't I seen you staring at me these days? You are all playing games," Dongfang Yuking muttered, and then persuaded, "this thing should be similar to stock trading, right? The stock market is risky, so you need to be cautious when investing. Don't be too indulged here, be careful not to invest all your money in it." "Okay, I got it," Wang Ling responded with a dumbfounded voice. After talking about Wang Ling, Zhang Shenke then asked other questions. "Yuking, is this the first time Tong Tong goes home with you?" On the side, Sun Tong Tong heard that the topic was about her, raised her head, and nodded a little shyly. "Yes, this is the first time." Dongfang Yuking hugged Sun Tong Tong with her right hand and said cheerfully, "This is the first time, so I should meet my parents in advance." "I hate it." Sun Tong Tong was shy. Wei Bowen joked again, "I don't recommend meeting your parents so early. What if you are forced to get married? If you get married before you graduate, how much money will we have to pay to attend your wedding?" Wang Ling couldn't laugh or cry when he heard that this guy was worried about his family's money. However, before Dongfang Yuking could answer this time, one of the four shirtless tattooed men on the side became interested in this topic. He turned around and said mockingly, "Brothers, are you from the university next door? He, I see you, you are thinking too much, your hair hasn't even grown yet, you haven't seen the cruelty of this society, have you?" "What do you mean?" Dongfang Yuking asked with a frown. The guy sneered and replied, "What kind of boyfriend and girlfriend? It's just for fun. Are you really thinking about getting married? When you get tired of playing or graduates, I don't believe you can still show off your affection like this. You guys will break up sooner or later. You." Upon hearing this, Sun Tong Tong frowned, and Dongfang Yuking also got angry, but just as he was about to stand up, Wei Bowen quickly suppressed him. To put it bluntly, they can't afford to offend this kind of social person. Zhang Shenke also stared, drank the rest of the draft beer, took a few more bites of skewers, and suddenly stood up. Wang Ling thought this guy was looking for a fight with them, but who knew that Zhang Sheng just passed by the table next door and went to buy something at a stall nearby instead. However, before Wang Ling and the others could breathe a sigh of relief, Zhang Shenke came over with 2 bottles of completely frozen mineral water, and he looked menacing. After getting closer, without waiting for Wang Ling and the others to react, this fellow suddenly breathed out all the 2 bottles of ice cubes on the shirtless tattooed man. He was using the ice cubes as a brick for his feelings. This call was to relieve their anger, but it caused them a lot of trouble. The person who was called was stunned, but the other 3 people became angry. They slapped the table, stood up and cursed, "Damn it, you are looking for death. If you have to deal with it, kill him. I'm giving you face, aren't you, little bastard? You're looking for death." With this posture, it was clear that a fight was about to begin. Zhang Sheng could not defeat them, so he could only shout quickly, "Brothers, run away." "You." This sudden situation made Wang Ling and the others a little stunned. When they came to their senses, they had no time to pay the bill, so they could only follow Zhang Sheng and ran towards the school. But those few gangsters were not willing to let them go, so they directly dismantled their barbecue table. The 3 of them were carrying 3 wooden legs. The guy who was called even took out a switchblade and chased them menacingly. "Run faster, faster!" Zhang Shenke ran at the front, shouting as he ran, for fear that someone would be caught up. Behind him, Wei Bowen followed closely. It seemed like it was his first time seeing such a scene, and this guy also felt a little panicked. Of course, The most panicked couple were Dongfang Yuking and Sun Tong Tong. They were from a girl's family and a patient. Their running speed was really slow. However, the one running at the back was Wang Ling. This guy was not in a hurry at all. He was just jogging while still complaining, "Shenkei is such an impulsive guy. You guys stop here, I'll catch you and see if I kill you. You bastard, I've rebelled against you. I'll see how long you can run. At worst, I'll chase you to school. I have to kill you today." Behind them, the four gangsters were chasing and shouting. Wang Ling felt very unhappy when he heard these words. Finally, after he deliberately slowed down, the shadows of Dongfang Yuking and Sun Tong Tong disappeared in front of him. At this time, Wang Ling simply stopped. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Different Dimension Red Alert World. Author, Sanqian Lang. Chapter 46. Hoo hoo. Brat, run, keep running, why don't you run? After Wang Ling stopped, the four gangsters quickly caught up with him. This frantic pursuit left them exhausted and out of breath. But Wang Ling was not blushing and out of breath. He crossed his arms and looked at the four gangsters whose chests were rising and falling playfully. He said, "Why should I run? It's so embarrassing to be chased to school by you. What a shame, it's better to solve the problem here in advance." The solve in his mouth naturally meant something, but the four gangsters misunderstood it. The yellow man holding the switchblade rubbed his face and cursed, "Little bastard, don't think you can stop, just beg for mercy and I'll let you go." Another person laughed, "Now it's too late to beg for mercy. Where was your momentum before you took action?" Wang Ling shook his head, a little amused, "Please, I didn't say I stopped to ask for mercy. What I meant was that I secretly killed the four of you while the others were away." As he spoke, Wang Ling's eyes gradually became fierce, as if he was in the Red Alert World arena. The four gangsters didn't know how fierce Wang Ling was. When they heard what he said, they glanced at each other, and then laughed for a while. "You little bastard, you are really good at blowing. I want to see what it looks like when you kneel down and beg for mercy. Guys, kill him first." As soon as they disagreed, the four gangsters took action. Hong Mao, who was the first to strike, looked like he was gritting his teeth. He picked up the table leg and smashed the undead's heavenly cap. This strike was quite cruel. But Wang Ling easily dodged sideways and hit him with a heavy punch on the corner of his mouth, knocking him 4 to 5 meters away. Half of his teeth fell out, and he even hit another man on the way. One person. After landing, both of them were in a state of confusion. They kept wailing and it seemed that they would not be able to stand up in a short time. "Hello." Another gangster was startled, but in the end he just thought that the two men were underestimating their enemy. Still unwilling to give up, he swung the table leg sideways and hit Wang Ling on the head. But Wang Ling casually bent down to dodge, and took advantage of the situation to launch a spinning kick, but kicked the little gangster in the head. Although Wang Ling retained the strength of this kick, most people couldn't bear it at all. The gangster was knocked unconscious by the kick. Oh shit. But even so, the last knife-wielding Huang Mao didn't realize how difficult Wang Ling was, so he gritted his teeth and stabbed him with a switchblade. When gangsters like them fight, many of the controlled knives are used to scare people. Unless they are forced to do something urgent, they rarely use them. But today, he has to use them even if he doesn't want to. However, even if it was used, it was in vain. Wang Ling grabbed his wrist halfway, like a pair of iron pliers, and pinched it off with a strong force, making the guy grimace in pain. Then, Wang Ling slapped Huang Mao's Tianling guy with his backhand. Even though he restrained his strength, he pushed Huang Mao down by more than 2 meters. Now, all four gangsters are down, and the whole process only takes less than 20 seconds. Wang Ling showed no complacency at all in beating these 4 people. He just crossed his arms and looked very calm and sharp. In the red alert world, Wang Ling was able to kill 99 people in a series of battles against the well-trained First Company. If he couldn't defeat these 4 gangsters now, then he should stop fighting. Huang Mao was still unwilling to be beaten by Wang Ling. He covered his wrists and whined for a while, but then he also threatened, "Wait, I will tell Brother Kui about this, just wait for me." "Hey, do you still have a backer?" Wang Ling laughed hoarsely. "We had dinner together for the last time and had a good chat, but you just spit on us. I didn't even settle the account with you, but you didn't finish it. Also, okay, just tell that Brother Kui, I don't care how you add fuel to the fire, I'll still be here waiting for you at this time tomorrow night, and we'll just solve it together then." After saying that, Wang Ling added, "Oh, by the way, tell him to bring as many people as he has, otherwise, there won't be enough for me to fight. Get out." "Humph, wait for me." Huang Mao repeated this several times before kicking the other 2 people. One dragged his chin, the other dragged the unconscious gangster. The 4 of them seemed to be running away and left Wang Ling's sight. Seeing their embarrassed appearance, Wang Ling couldn't help but shook his head and sighed. In this situation, to be honest, in the past, Wang Ling could only run away. If he couldn't escape, he would be beaten. But now, after being tempered and strengthened in the world of Red Alert, I no longer care about this level of fighting in my heart. How long had it been before such a change occurred? Wang Ling felt a little sad for a while. After clicking his tongue, Wang Ling clapped his hands, turned around as if nothing happened, and slowly walked towards the school. He thought that those unreliable roommates had already hid back in school, but not long after he walked forward, Zhang Shenkai and Wei Bowen ran back and surrounded Wang Ling when they saw him. "I said, are you okay? I heard Yuking and his wife said they lost you. We thought you were beaten severely after being caught up, and maybe even castrated. Looking at you like this, you seem to be fine." Wang Ling twitched the corner of his mouth exaggeratedly. "You just got cut? If we really wait for you to save me, the day lily will be cold." Wei Bowen giggled, but Zhang Shenkai asked, "What do you mean? You took care of the 4 of them by yourself." Wang Ling had no intention of admitting it. He shook his head and said, "What are you thinking? Can I beat them? They found out halfway that they couldn't catch up with us, so they stopped on their own, and I was too lazy to run any longer." After hearing what he said, the 2 men breathed a sigh of relief. At this time, Dongfang Yuking and his wife finally trotted over and asked again. Wang Ling could only repeat the same old saying. Although the credibility of this statement was not very high, after all, Wang Ling was safe and sound, so they believed it. As for the barbecue stall, after what happened tonight, they didn't dare to go back to pay the bill. They could only wait to find a time to settle the bill later, and then go back to the dormitory to rest tonight. After all, everyone will go their separate ways tomorrow. Wang Ling did not go to the Red Alert world to train tonight. Instead, he stayed up with them for half a night to play games together. When he was really tired, he lay down on the bed and fell asleep. Passed. In the early morning of the next day, Wang Ling rarely slept in. He waited for Sun Tongtong to arrive before he and the 3 pieces of food got up in a daze. After washing, they stayed there not long after, ate some snacks, and then took Dongfang together. Yuking and his wife sent them to the train station. Afterwards, Zhang Shenkai and Wei Bowen didn't go back to school at all. Instead, they took the bus back to their work unit. Wang Ling was the only one left in the 4-person room. Different Dimension Red Alert World. Author, Sanqian Lang. Chapter 47. Although the 4-person room was quiet, Wang Ling felt uncomfortable looking at the 3 empty beds. Fortunately, Wang Ling got used to it. After sighing for a while, life returned to its original appearance. He stayed in the dormitory and played games on his mobile phone when he had nothing to do. When there was class, he went to the teaching building, and when it was time to eat, he went to the teaching building. Went to the cafeteria, it was 3 o'clock, and soon it was night. This night, Wang Ling was not in a hurry to go to the red alert world. Instead, he watched the time and went to the barbecue restaurant last night to apologize to the boss and settle the remaining bill from last night. Then I just bought a bottle of drink, and while drinking it, I walked to the place where the fight last night was and waited. Tonight, there are still things to solve. After waiting for a short time, the agreed time finally arrived. Wang Ling squatted under the streetlight and looked around for a while, but still couldn't see anyone. Just as he was wondering, he suddenly saw more than 20 people in the distance, and they walked over in a menacing manner. If the estimate is correct, this should be Brother Kui's team that Huang Mao talked about last night. The person at the head, carrying a machete, shirtless, with chest hair covering his chest, a fleshy face, and a fierce look in his eyes, was probably the so-called Brother Kui. When Wang Ling saw them, he was not in a hurry. He just squatted down and drank his drink, watching them all the way. However, this Brother Kui seemed to be a bit aggressive. When he got here, he just glanced at Wang Ling, and then continued to walk forward with the team without stopping. Wang Ling was stunned for a moment. Am I so inconspicuous, just ignore it? Or did I get the wrong person? When he was wondering, at the end of the group, he suddenly saw Huang Mao, whose wrist had been pinched yesterday. This yellow hair was frightened when he saw Wang Ling, but he soon calmed down, gritted his teeth and hurried forward, blocking the chest guard hair at the front. Brother Kui, that's him, yesterday he is the one provoking us. As he spoke, Huang Mao quickly pointed at Wang Ling. But Wang Ling drank the drink leisurely, as if watching the fun, until the so-called Brother Kui looked over and said hello, hi, big guy. However, Brother Kui ignored him and grabbed Huang Mao's ear. Are you kidding me? 4 people lost to such a little brat? Are you all just doing it for a living? Wang Ling was stunned again, and then he touched the muscles on his arms in a decent manner. After exercising in the red alert world for so long, and with the help of strengtheners, these muscles were very strong. How could he still be beaten in the end? Becoming a chicken? Hey, Brother Kui, it hurts, it hurts. Huang Mao had no time to care about him and shouted quickly. When Brother Kui let go of his hand, he covered his ears and accused, Brother Kui, it's not that we are doing nothing, it's that this kid is too evil. Although he is not big and not fierce enough, this kid's explosive power is too strong. Have you seen my wrist? Yesterday, he pinched it with his hands, it's broken. Give me that blow on the forehead, it almost makes me stiff. This Huang Mao seemed to be afraid that Brother Kui would look down on him, so he boasted Wang Ling so hard that Brother Kui became a little disdainful and pushed him away. Then he looked Wang Ling up and down, boy, are you provoking us to bring more people? Wait a minute. Wang Ling did not answer him immediately. Instead, he drank up the drink in 2 gulps, walked calmly to a nearby trash can, threw away the bottle, and then walked back leisurely. Seeing his unhurried look, Brother Kui and the others were a little dumbfounded. Is this kid too aggressive or a little stupid? Wang Ling didn't care what they thought. When he came back, he clapped his hands and asked, are you Brother Kui? It's me. I can't change my name no matter what I do. Zheng Kui, the local snake in this area, is talking about me. Brother Kui raised his mouth and looked like his eyes were higher than his head. When Wang Ling heard the words local snake, he suddenly thought of a boy named Zheng Long in his department. It is said that his brother is a local snake in this area, isn't he? In addition, Brother Kui's surname is also Zheng. Thinking about it, it is probably a coincidence that he hit Zheng Long's brother. Thinking of this, Wang Ling laughed hoarsely, and then said, I don't care who you are, You're just a nobody. I'm too lazy to remember your name, Zheng Kui interrupted Wang Ling directly and nodded his chin. Boy, you are so crazy. You dare to provoke us. Being looked down upon like this, Wang Ling was a little dumbfounded, so he simply pointed it out. Yes, I don't understand the rules and practices in your way. Don't say so many words. I don't want to be stared at by you every day. It's troublesome, just solve it once and for all. Do you plan to do it one by one, or together? Hey, boy, you are so arrogant. Zheng Kui laughed angrily and pointed at the person next to him. Xiao Wu, come on. The man named Xiao Wu was no smaller than Zheng Kui, with a naive appearance. He was holding a baseball bat. When he was called, he was not polite. He slowly walked towards Wang Ling with the baseball bat. Looking at this posture, that's called a prestige. But why are you pretending to be a big-tailed wolf? Wang Ling found him a little displeased, and kicked him halfway into the crowd, knocking down a group of people. This guy named Xiao Wu was stunned. Couldn't swing the bat. Zheng Kui was unhappy, touched his head, and shook the machete. If you don't drink a toast, you will be fined. Brothers, come together and destroy him. Upon hearing this, the others showed their weapons one after another, and the group of people who were knocked down also stood up one after another, approaching Wang Ling with a fierce look. But Wang Ling was not worried at all. Instead, he was aroused to have a bellicose mentality. He clenched his fists and rushed into the battle circle first. He flew around and kicked one person with a roundhouse kick, knocking down a whole group. Hey! Beside him, a gangster suddenly hit him with a stick, but Wang Ling jumped back nimbly, dodged and knocked him over with a punch, then jumped up and swiped him again. 2 people were hit in the legs, and 5 people were knocked down. When the fighting started, the group of gangsters became a little anxious. 2 baseball bats and a machete came at Wang Ling one after another. Although Wang Ling was strong, he didn't dare to take the iron lump and the blade head on. He turned over to one side to avoid it, and then continued to use his heavy fists and kicks. Anyone who was hit by him, without exception, would have to fall down. Although these gangsters were large in number, they were only about 20 people at most. Wang Ling had no problem dealing with them. As time went by, more and more gangsters fell at the feet of his fists. Those who were hit head-on would not be able to stand up for a period of time. When Zheng Kui saw this scene, he couldn't help but feel guilty. He originally wanted to make a sneak attack, but there were fewer and fewer brothers who could cover him. While hesitating, other than Huang Mao and him, there were already all fell down. Hey, your brothers are all down. It's your turn, brother Kui. Wang Ling knocked down more than 20 people, but he didn't give up. He twisted his neck left and right, and then provoked Zheng Kui. There were quarrels at home early in the morning, and the day started with negative energy, and I was upset. Although every family has its own sutras that are difficult to recite, why do I feel that there are so many in my area during this period of time? I won't complain about this anymore. The recommendation is over. I also need to temporarily update it for a few days to relax and try to save some more manuscripts. Different Dimension Red Alert World. Author, Sanqian Lang. Chapter 48. Now, Zheng Kui was embarrassed. Seeing so many guys lying on the ground and wailing, he already regretted coming forward. This guy who looked harmless to humans and animals turned out to be so cruel when he started to fight. However, after all, he was called Brother Kui and now Wang Ling was provoking him again, so let it go. He couldn't get angry, so he simply gritted his teeth, raised his machete and struck at Wang Ling. But Wang Ling moved faster and rushed to him before him, punching him in the stomach. Wang Ling didn't use much force in this punch, but Zheng Kui was still in unbearable pain. He bent over Wang Ling and bared his teeth. After that, Wang Ling looked specifically at Huang Mao. When Huang Mao met his gaze, Huang Mao's whole body was agitated. He was at a loss. He didn't even know what to say. He could only speak subconsciously. He stood back. Wang Ling didn't care about him. For this kind of thing, if you don't have a big fist, you will definitely suffer a big loss, but just a big fist can't completely solve it. Now that the lesson has been learned, Wang Ling did not go too far. Instead, he helped Zhang Kui upright, looked at him helplessly and asked, "Do you want to continue to fight?" Zhang Kui had no intention of fighting anymore. He rubbed his belly and grinned for a while, then turned around and kicked Huang Mao down. He scolded Huang Mao with an angry look, "You bastard, how dare anyone dare to provoke?" This yellow hair, when chatting with Zhang Kui last night, did add a lot of fuel and jealousy. However, although Zhang Kui looks like a tough guy, he is actually not stupid. He knows what these people are and who they are. You can guess who you provoke first. Wang Ling didn't stop him, he just crossed his arms and watched the show silently. Zhang Kui seemed to be afraid of Wang Ling's sudden attack, so he quickly turned around and comforted Wang Ling, "Brother, I'm sorry, these bastards are usually too arrogant. I'll teach them a lesson when I turn around." After saying that, he quickly glared at Huang Mao, "Why don't you come over and apologize?" Huang Mao was already timid and hurried forward with a flattering smile, "Little brother, I'm really sorry about what happened yesterday. How about you call your brothers over and I can apologize to them in person?" Wang Ling was too lazy to pester anymore and waved his hand, "No need to apologize. I don't want to meddle in other people's business. Just don't pester us in the future. I find it annoying." After saying that, Wang Ling yawned, glanced at the wailing gangsters, and clapped his ears, okay, stop shouting, I'm so annoying. Let's forget about it here, let's go our separate ways. On the other hand, see you later." As he spoke, Wang Ling turned around and walked directly towards the school. But Zhang Kui shouted from behind, "Little brother, what's your name?" Wang Ling, however, didn't even look back and waved his hand directly, "He's just a nobody. You're too lazy to listen, and I'm too lazy to talk anymore. For it." Zhang Kui was stunned for a moment. He saw Wang Ling drifting away and out of his sight. Then he looked at the others with hatred, "Get up. All of them are really worthless. Go back. Come on, don't embarrass me again." To put it bluntly, Wang Ling is more afraid of trouble. If he is worried about those gangsters every day, there is no need to be afraid, but it can annoy him to death, so it would be easier to deal with it directly. After tonight's battle, the gangsters were finally safe, and Wang Ling breathed a sigh of relief. After returning to the dormitory, I played casual games for a while. When I felt sleepy, I lay on the bed and entered the Red Alert world to rest. The barracks in the Red Alert world remain the same, with snoring coming one after another from the dark tent. After training all day, these comrades were also tired. In reality, Wang Ling occupies a room of 4 alone, which makes him a little lonely. However, in this virtual game world, he can still be accompanied by such a group of lovely comrades. Wang Ling couldn't help but sigh for a while at this comparison. No matter what, during the remaining period of time, Wang Ling's life in the barracks finally returned to its original track. He got up early in the morning for a morning run, started another day of training after breakfast, and continued to practice military marching boxing in the evening. The more interesting change is that since the 5th Company won the competition, the nights in the barracks have always been extremely lively, but all the soldiers who were supposed to be resting refused to relax, and the shouts rang through the training ground, and drops of sweat dropped, rolling down the red earth. After the night training, I wash up and return to the camp, chat with my comrades for a while and then return to the real world to rest. After a whole day, I enter the Red Alert world again the next night. Over and over again, time is this passed by inadvertently, and in a blink of an eye, It was already the night before Wang Ling left. That night, the fifth company was particularly lively, and the canteen and restaurant were filled with banquets and banquets. It was considered as a farewell to Wang Ling a day in advance. To be honest, Wang Ling personally didn't like this kind of partying atmosphere. No one encouraged him to drink, but he kept drinking alone. A few days ago, he was not used to this kind of alcohol and got drunk quickly. But now he is gradually getting used to it, and coupled with the changes in his physical fitness, the vodka always feels like it has been mixed with water. No matter how much he drinks it, he will not get drunk. In the end, the comrades couldn't stand it any longer and quickly stopped him before stopping him. After a while of excitement, the fifth company's dinner finally came to an end. The instructor didn't know what he meant, so he called Wang Ling out alone and came to a deserted place. He just stood there without saying anything. After a while, Wang Ling couldn't help but ask, "Instructor, you came to me just to see the scenery, right?" The instructor then let out a long sigh, looked back at Wang Ling, and praised, "It seems that I had a good vision at the beginning. I was the worst in the entire army, but I have indeed become the strongest in the entire army, although it is only limited to the barracks now." Wang Ling twitched his lips. Everyone has vanity, and Wang Ling is no exception. Now he feels a little proud. But the instructor immediately changed his tone, "You were born in the wrong era." "What?" Wang Ling was confused. The instructor sighed, "Now is the period of the war for hegemony. There are countless casualties on the battlefield, and the outstanding soldiers who have fallen on the battlefield are simply countless. Now you are about to step into this kind of battlefield. How can I feel relieved?" Wang Ling did not speak, but the instructor was still admonishing, "Remember, Wang Ling, on the battlefield, don't be greedy for success. While completing the task, you must ensure that you survive. Heroes are not heroes, those are not important. I don't want you to be a martyr the next time I see you." Wang Ling still didn't speak, but bursts of warmth suddenly felt in his heart. This scene was very different from the battlefield and troops in his impression. Which soldier before joining the battlefield did not receive the admonition to make more military exploits? But this instructor happened to do the opposite. It can be seen that the instructor is really worried about Wang Ling. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Different Dimension Red Alert World. Author, Sanqian Lang. Chapter 49. Haha, don't worry, instructor, I'm not that stupid. I have the same vitality as Xiaoqiang. The person who can kill me is probably not even born yet." After a period of silence, Wang Ling finally spoke, laughing and laughing. Extremely confident. Part of these words were to comfort the instructor, and part of them were actually Wang Ling's true thoughts. To put it bluntly, the Red Alert world is just a virtual game. Wang Ling is certainly confused and afraid of the battlefield he is about to face, but in fact, he is more looking forward to it. After all, it is a place where he can earn points openly. As for now, Wang Ling just couldn't bear to part with these comrades. Although they are virtual, these system programs are too real. Wang Ling is also really lonely in reality. After spending so long with them, Wang Ling can no longer distinguish between real and fake. When the instructor heard this, his originally tense face suddenly relaxed, and he smiled and cursed, "You kid, don't be so arrogant, or you may lose your life." Wang Ling giggled and didn't answer anything, but the instructor then joked again, "You kid, seriously, if you are really promoted and become my boss in the future, don't bully me like I bully you." Huh? Wang Ling raised his eyebrows, somewhat interested in this topic. "Why, instructor, you also admit that you bullied us?" "Haha, that's not possible. By then, The amount of tasks you will give us every day will be double done. You little brat, your tail has started to rise before you even entered the battlefield. The instructor punched Wang Ling in the chest in return. Wang Ling did not dodge, but took it directly. However, although this punch seemed to be heavy and fierce, in fact, the instructor did not use much force at all and was just joking. After talking for so long, the instructor had almost everything to explain. After the two were silent for a while, Wang Ling said goodbye and left. However, he did not return to the camp. Instead, he found 2 more bottles of wine and walked in the direction of the first company. After the meal, many people in the first company were resting and walking outside. When they saw Wang Ling coming, they all stayed alert. After all, Wang Ling made a really deep impression on them during the group competition. But Wang Ling ignored them. After scanning for a while, he walked through the crowd and came to a huge rock not far away. No 099, who Wang Ling hated most in the first company, was sitting alone. Above. Hey, No 099, come back. No 099 had his back turned to him. Wang Ling shouted and threw out a bottle of vodka. The 099 didn't know that Wang Ling was coming. When he heard the call to him, he subconsciously turned around, but a wine bottle hit him on the head. After subconsciously catching the bottle, No 099 saw clearly that the person coming was Wang Ling, and immediately became angry. Number 101, what do you mean? Wang Ling shook the wine bottle in his hand. Drink something. With you. Can't you? Cut. No 099 didn't remain stubborn for too long. He opened the bottle cap and took a sip. Wang Ling was not polite to him. He sat down on the boulder and after taking a sip of vodka, he smacked his lips and said, "This wine tastes pretty good." No 099 glanced at him. "Why, you are going to the battlefield tomorrow to make great achievements, and you are here to mock me tonight. You still hate me?" Wang Ling asked. No 099 did not answer, so Quan took it as acquiescence. Wang Ling then laughed at himself. When it comes to hatred, it should be because I hate you, right? Yes, when I first entered the barracks, I was indeed in poor physical condition, and I was ranked the worst in the army. But I don't know how unhappy I sound with this name. You came here specifically to make fun of me that day, so wasn't I angry? No 099 still didn't speak, just took another sip of wine. Wang Ling stayed with him for a while and continued, "Because of my poor physique, if I want to maintain the same training progress as you, I have to work harder and work harder than others. I collapse again and again. How many times of gritted teeth and persistence, how many rallying slogans, did I barely keep up with you?" No 099 originally wanted to drink wine, but after Wang Ling said these words, he suddenly stopped holding the bottle, turned his head and looked at Wang Ling for a long time, and finally laughed at himself. "I used to be too arrogant. You can imagine how difficult it is for you to grow to this point. I am indeed angry with you, and even more angry with myself. I couldn't even defeat you in your weak state, which is really shameful." As he spoke, No 099 couldn't help but shake his head, poured wine, and rubbed his face, as if to try to sober himself up. Although it doesn't mean he has completely cleared up his past feud, his willingness to say this is already a concession. Wang Ling smiled and patted his shoulder. "You are very strong, I admit that. There is no need to feel inferior because you lost to me. I am just a passerby here." After saying that, Wang Ling stretched out and took another sip of wine. "Compared to our fifth company, I met you earlier on the battlefield. Next time we meet, we are no longer competitors, but comrades." "Comrade?" No 099 looked a little confused. He looked at Wang Ling and didn't know what he was thinking. Drop. 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 First company, gather within 30 seconds. At this time, the assembly horn of the first company finally sounded. Wang Ling will join the battlefield tomorrow. The first company is not too far away from him, so he has to step up his training. No 099 did not dare to delay at the assembly call, so he quickly jumped off the boulder. Just as he was about to leave, he stopped again, turned back, and pointed at the wine bottle to Wang Ling. "Thank you for the wine, the rest will go to you me." "As you wish," Wang Ling responded with a smile. Watching No 099 go away, Wang Ling drank a few more sips alone, then wiped his mouth and returned to his company. Tonight, because of Wang Ling, all night training programs of the fifth company were cancelled. The entire company was together, chatting or playing games. These games seemed very cliched to Wang Ling, but this group of people had a lot of fun playing them, and they were simply cute. While playing around, time passed quickly. Wang Ling only felt that it was already rest time in the barracks not long after. All other comrades returned to camp, but Wang Ling carried his things alone and went to the room temporarily arranged for him by Captain Ling Fei. He would leave directly from here early tomorrow morning. According to Wang Ling's usual habit, he would return to the real world before going to bed at night to buffer himself for a day before coming in. But tonight, Wang Ling didn't want to go back at all. He just lay on the hard bed and tossed and turned all night. In the early morning of the next day, Wang Ling woke up with the assembly call, tidied up temporarily, and met Captain Ling Fei when he went out. Deputy Tianyu was holding a set of mobilization uniforms and equipment. An anti-aircraft tracked vehicle. Wang Ling hurriedly performed a military salute, and Captain Ling Fei returned the salute and said, "Put on your battle uniform. There is food prepared in the car. Go and head to the battlefield that belongs to you." Different Dimension Red Alert World. Author, Sanqian Lang. Chapter 50. Yes. Wang Ling responded, and Deputy Tianyu quickly put on the soldiers' uniforms. After Wang Ling took over, he put it on 3 times, 5 divided by 2, put on a gas mask while holding a submachine gun, found a mirror and looked at it. He always felt that this equipment was really awkward and did not have a mighty posture at all. The most handsome and most desirable military uniform in his mind is the uniform worn by Chinese soldiers in real life. But this is the Red Alert world. Currently, this is the only uniform and there is no other choice. There was no other way, people had to lower their heads under the eaves, so Wang Ling just had to make do with it. After looking in the mirror, Wang Ling turned around and walked towards the anti-aircraft crawler vehicle, stood firm, and looked at it. This type of anti-aircraft tracked vehicle is the most common tank of the coalition forces. It travels extremely fast and can carry 5 people. It is the basic carrier vehicle of the coalition forces and is relatively cheap to build. It can also be used in combat. The shells it fires can hit both air targets and ground targets. However, the anti-aircraft tracked vehicle in Wang Ling's memory did considerable damage to humanoid units, but the damage to tanks was almost negligible, and its own armor was too brittle to survive without being hit. After observing the tracked vehicle, Wang Ling took one last look at the barracks. After a while, he finally calmed down. After saying hello to Captain Ling Fei, he got into the anti-aircraft tracked vehicle without hesitation. While other comrades in the barracks were still running in the morning, Wang Ling had already followed the tracked vehicle and drifted away from the barracks. Watching the anti-aircraft crawler vehicle leave, Captain Ling Fei couldn't help but sigh. On the side, Deputy Tianyu looked towards the back of the house and shouted, "Lao Wu, how long are you going to hide?" The 5th instructor heard the sound and walked out with a helpless look. When Captain Ling Fei saw him, he burst into laughter. "If you don't go and take the team for a morning jog, why are you here to be lazy?" When the 5th instructor faced the captain, he lost all his attitude as an instructor. After standing at attention, he replied, "Sir, those little bastards also wanted to come. It took a lot of effort for me to suppress them and came to see them off on their behalf." Captain Ling Fei shook his head and said nothing. Instead, Deputy Tianyu said, as for that, it's not like you've never been on the battlefield. And your fifth company will also have this moment in the future, he's just a little ahead of schedule. In fact, Wang Ling had already noticed that the instructor secretly came to see him off when he visited the barracks for the last time. However, he didn't know how to say goodbye, so he simply pretended that he didn't see it and just kept this feeling in his heart. At this time, Wang Ling was sitting in a closed-tracked vehicle, swaying and munching on dried meat to satisfy his hunger. After leaving the barracks, he forcibly left behind his previous reluctance. All he had in his heart was the expectation of the battlefield, and what was revealed in his eyes was that indelible confidence. Haha, kid, congratulations. You have completed the first chapter of recruit training ahead of schedule, and now you have officially entered the second chapter, Battlefield Baptism. Just as Wang Ling was looking forward to the scene of the battlefield, something suddenly came out in his mind. He heard Uncle Hei's voice. Wang Ling blinked after hearing this, and while eating the dried meat, he asked in his mind, Uncle Hei, how many chapters are there in the red alert world you designed? Uncle Hei clicked his tongue and replied, You boy, you are quite curious. However, I don't have the authority to tell you. As long as you push and develop according to the normal trajectory, subsequent chapters will emerge one after another. TCH, Wang Ling couldn't help but rolled his eyes. I'm so angry that I won't even say this. Uncle Hei smiled, are you still not happy? Interesting. But I really can't tell you. This is like revealing to you in advance what will happen in the future. It is against the rules. Otherwise, if you knew it in advance, you would definitely various response methods will be arranged in advance, which violates the original intention. Yes, what do you mean? I won't ask, okay, Wang Ling was dissatisfied. Uncle Hei had long been accustomed to Wang Ling's temperament, and just responded with a smile, I can't tell you these, but I can reveal some other things to you. What's up? When you are in the barracks, you should be able to feel that everything there does not look like a game or program, but is no different from real life, right? Yes, everything is too real, Wang Ling did not deny it. Uncle Hei continued, it was to give you an environment where you can grow quickly. Now that you have graduated and successfully walked out of the barracks, on the battlefield in the second chapter, you have naturally returned to the essence of the game. For example, the tanks on the battlefield are very different from those in reality. They are not specially driven by people, but appear as independent arms. Huh? What do you mean? Wang Ling was a little surprised, and then he patted the carriage and shouted as if he didn't quite believe it, Hey, is there anyone? Is anyone there? After several consecutive calls, no one responded. Wang Ling stopped and marveled, except for Wang Ling, there was no one inside this anti-aircraft crawler vehicle, not even a driver. Independent arms, to put it another way, each tank is an independent living entity in the game. These tanks are assembled in the tank factory. After leaving the factory and entering the game, they have been gamified and become independent units. When their health is exhausted, they will be scrapped. This setting really feels like a game, Wang Ling muttered to himself. But Uncle Hei was still talking. For another example, on the battlefield, whether it is soldiers, tanks, or buildings, they all have health, and all of them are marked with health bars above their heads. Hey, is it just like the black soldier I killed back then? Wang Ling smiled. This setting is more like a game. Uncle Hei then said, yes, it's that form. However, the enemies you encounter on the battlefield are no worse than those viruses. If you don't take advantage of it, it will be difficult to achieve the previous results, and you may even be defeated. Possibility of counterattack. Okay, Uncle Hei, don't worry about this. If you get up early, just curse me. You kid, to be honest, you don't like hearing it anymore. In addition to these, I also considered the number of people on the battlefield when designing. The number of soldiers in Red Alert is generally small, but in real wars, it can often be seen it was a scene where tens of thousands of people were charging, so I gave it some comprehensive consideration and increased the number of soldiers on the battlefield. In the Red Alert world, the barracks are still some distance away from the battlefield, but the speed of the anti-aircraft crawler vehicle is also very fast. After Wang Ling talked with Uncle He and ate some dried meat, the crawler vehicle had stopped. Wang Ling sorted out his equipment, then jumped out of the car. He turned around and took a look at the tracked vehicle. Sure enough, there was a whole tube of green health bars above it. After successfully delivering Wang Ling to his destination, the tracked vehicle completed its mission and drove directly into the base without carrying Wang Ling. Wang Ling did not stop it, but turned around and looked at the base he came to.